All right, so welcome to Effective Design of a K-2 Literacy Block. My name's Kim Tackaberry, and it is my pleasure to present with Lana Lane. And we are both from the consortium, and we're really excited that you're here, whether you're joining us in person or you're joining us later at your convenience virtually. So, and excuse me just as I let some other folks in here as I'm also talking. Okay, so we are going to share a link to all of the slides, and I believe it's slide 5 where we'll share the link and I'll pop it in the chat so that you can have access to all the slides that you'll see today. And we are going to start with a land acknowledgement. So Lana and I, it was so interesting. We had great discussions with the land acknowledgement, and then we decided that we all come with our own perspectives, and we all come with the meaning, our own meaning and understanding in terms of reconciliation. So we're going to just take a couple minutes to talk about our land acknowledgements. And so I had the pleasure of presenting in Kainai Nation, and following the presentation, one of the elders approached me, and because I had asked for feedback, so please give me some feedback. And she shared that she felt she didn't learn anything about my heritage. So where was I coming from? What was my family's connection to the land? So I took that to heart. I thought that was such a great suggestion. So on the left-hand side is a picture of my immediate family, my 2 boys and my husband, and our lineage. So my mom's family lineage is the Bredner family. It's my mom on the right, but my grandfather owned an apple orchard. And for years as children, we would go and play in Meaford, Ontario in his apple orchard. And he would kneel down to the earth and he would pick up the soil, and he would say, "This is the soil of the people of the Three Fires," known as, and he wouldn't, when we were little, talk as much about Ojibwe, Ottawa, Potawatomi nations, but he talked about the people of the fire. And as children, I remember we just were captivated by his story. But he said, "I would not have this apple orchard without the people of the Three Fires. They took care of the land and they honored the land and they nurtured it so that I can grow and nourish other people, nourish my family." So I would like to, as a white settler, acknowledge that we're gathering today on the traditional lands of knowledge keepers and elders, and some of which are with us today, and those who have gone before us. And I am proud of my heritage, Treaty 45 and a half. So Lana, I will pass it over to you.
Awesome, thank you. So a little different than you, Kim. I think on this journey of reconciliation and what it is that we're trying to learn, that is the piece, I guess, that I have taken away from our land acknowledgements is what can I learn from those that came before me. So I'm currently in Lloydminster, and to the north of me, about 20 minutes, is the Onion Lake Cree Nation. And so that would be the closest one to me. And I know as a descendant of white settlers, part of the responsibility for the reconciliation is for me to learn about those original caretakers of the land, but also learn a little bit more about their culture, their traditions, and their worldviews. And so maybe it's not always about remembering the past, but also shaping how I live and how I teach today. So one of the things that I've most recently learned, and I've really taken to heart about the Indigenous culture, is the idea and the importance of circle. And so this circle representing the balance and the equality, as well as the connection that we all have to one another. And no one sits above or below of another in a circle. And so when we are gathered in our spaces, wherever we are, and I do a lot of community work here in Lloydminster, and I've really taken this piece to heart when I have folks with me in meetings and stuff, that we do our best to always be in circle. And so everyone's voice in that circle matters, and everyone in the circle matters. And so everybody belongs. And so that circle reminds us of the learning that's lifelong. and that the healing is ongoing, and that the community that we're building is through respect and the reciprocity that we all share. So as teachers, we are part of a circle with our students, our colleagues, and our communities. And if we carry forward this teaching, we can create those classrooms that honor all voices, where students feel a sense of belonging, and where those Indigenous perspectives are not only added as an afterthought to our teaching, but that they become part of our teaching practice. So the talking circles, where everyone speaks in turn, fostering that respect and listening. The idea of the medicine wheel, teaching the balance of all of those physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental pieces of our life. And I love this idea of the drum, the heartbeat of the people, played in a circle to represent the unity. And then, of course, when we think of seasons and life stages being as cyclical, that reminds us that we're all interconnected and that we're ever renewing. And finally, that whole community decision making that's done in circles to symbolize the equality and that responsibility. So how does this affect me as a teacher or a presenter? And it was interesting learning this from the culture too, even when we're presenting, Kim, that we ask people to put their view so that it looks like a circle. So that gallery view where it's kind of ongoing and it always comes back. And anytime we're in a meeting with students or we're in a meeting with teachers, that we are in the circle. It's not that I'm in front of you and you are sitting down below me. So I just found this piece of that culture is one that we should honor and we should practice and really try to learn a little bit more from. So that's kind of where I took my land acknowledgement today. It's, I guess, yes, I'm gathered here in Treaty 6 territory, but also learning and having a responsibility to learn a little bit more about the Indigenous culture and what that means and how we live our everyday life. So that's kind of where I took my land acknowledgement today.
Thank you, Lana. And I like your point about sessions and even virtual. I mean, it seems so
Mhm.
hard to create that circle, but I would like to invite all of you and some of you who are joining us virtually later, but that idea of please share, please contribute. If you don't have your camera on, that's fine. I mean, I often like to just listen. There are some interactive elements we'll get to. Don't have to participate. They're just meant to allow you some time to think critically about the content. So please participate in the way that works for you, but really know that Lana and I are here to learn too. So
Mhm.
that's a great, I really appreciate that circle, to talk about the importance of the circle and the sharing circle. So our time together today, so hard to believe it's Tuesday, August 19th already, but we are together until 10 a.m. For an hour and a half. Our docket, so what is it that we're hoping to share with you today, to discuss with you? We want to take a look at the K-2 ELAL curriculum and really just use that as we all do, to consistently come back to in terms of our instruction, our planning, our literacy blocks. We'll look at literacy time guides, and we really want to stress that idea of a guide. We're really looking to give some way to just give you guidance about the different components. We'll also talk about what does the research tell us to collaborate and connect with the curriculum about those robust components. So there's 5 robust components that we've really taken from the research, Dr. Tim Shanahan in particular, through his meta-analysis. So we'll talk about those. And then I've added in EAL high yield strategies. So we will embed those along the way. We'll look at how you can implement each component and finish and complete the session with some sample literacy blocks, but along the way, hoping we've sparked some thinking in that area. So I did want to say welcome to Taylor, Gerline, Ginger. Thank you for joining us in person. All right, so we'll start with the Alberta curriculum. So today we're focusing K-2. This highlights 3 a little bit. We know that our classrooms have such a, are so varied in terms of students' abilities, but the curriculum has the following organizing ideas that are listed there in white. And then the blue really shows us the grade levels that those organizing ideas are targeted or do target. And then I always joke and say, oh, isn't it amazing to know by the end of grade 2, all students across Alberta have their phonological awareness skills intact. And obviously, facetious, we know that doesn't happen, but we do know that in terms of the curriculum itself, those are the grade levels that it is the primary focus. And then comprehension, we know that is the goal of why we learn to read, is to be able to understand and comprehend written material. So Lynn, I'm not sure, did you want to add anything else here before we go into the components?
No, I think you're good. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll keep coming back to this. All right, so what I would like to do, again, if you have access to the chat, you can participate. If you don't have access, it can just be a time to just give this some thought. But if we go back to, oh, this is where, oh, I struggle. I can't, sometimes my little pencil mark goes over my, oh, there it is. Goes over me being able to change my slides. I know, this happens before. This happened to me before. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay, so if we go back here and we talked about sort of 5 key components that have surfaced in the literature in terms of integrating those into our literacy blocks. So if I leave this slide up and we go to the chat, and again, you can, as I said, if you have access to the chat, you can participate. Just using the first letter, so you don't have to type them all out, can you predict which of these would fall into those 5 key components that should be integrated into a literacy block? And we know that a lot of them mesh and merge and combine together, but what would you predict would be the 5 key elements? So I'm just, as an example in the chat, I just put O for oral language, PE for phonological awareness. So I just kind of predicted there what I think. And again, I went with, I don't already know what those 5 components are as an example. If you want to just predict that, if you're driving or you're walking around, just sort of thinking to yourself, what would be the 5 key components? So I'll just kind of let you think about that for a moment, because we're going to move to those 5 and talk about those specifically. Okay, so if you're still typing, type, press send, add it in. But what we wanted to do is use, again, the literature to think and talk a little bit about these robust components. So I'm going to start with this slide and talk about the idea of what these 5 components would be. Okay, so the first one, that oral language conversation component. And that is one in the next slide. I'm going to show you a visual that sprinkles over the other 4. So we know that conversation, oral language in particular, English as an additional language, sprinkles over the other 4 components. Okay, so the 4 components that we have listed here are word work, word play, morphology, and these time components that are integrated underneath are guides. So we know that you're going to be working with your students on something that's going to be really immersed in writing, for example, during certain times over the course of the year. But what we're really hoping is that thinking around bringing these all together. So weaving these elements together as much as you can. So underneath in the boxes, what we've done is incorporated those organizing ideas from the Alberta curriculum, just to show the alignment there. So writing about 20 minutes, we're looking at this as a 90-minute block example. We know I've heard teachers say in workshops I've done, I only get 60 minutes, right? Well, we can start to look at, can we create those interdisciplinary blocks? So can we use some of our social studies time or some of our science time to integrate some of those English language, arts, and literature minutes? And then the third, or would be the fourth component, including conversation, would be fluency. So again, we've got 20 minutes there approximately, incorporating all of these organizing ideas. And the final one, and I know I, as well as Lana, get lots of questions about this one, is comprehension in terms of small and whole group reading. And so again, we've integrated underneath there some components. So I'm gonna, Lana, move to the next one just to kind of give that visual of the conversation. So this is just to show and really accentuate this idea of conversation, oral language, intentional talk time sprinkled over the other four components. So Lana, I'll turn to you, and I'm going to pause for a minute too in terms of questions, wonderings.
Well, and I think Ginger made the comment in the chat about that conversational piece and often oral language being left out. And I think specific to kindergarten to grade 2, for sure, the research is showing that students need to be orally conversing and sharing. That is how they're going to learn to be better readers and writers. So we're always going to set the stage for the reading and the writing that we want to be doing with conversation. And so I think today's deck will kind of interweave all of that idea with the examples that we're sharing. How does the teacher, kindergarten to grade 2, get their students conversing and sharing before they're actually going to write and before they're actually going to read? So those will be the pieces I think that are really important. And I think also in our day and age of technology and what we're seeing socially and emotionally with children, the lack of conversation in social situations, so how do we get students to actually be speaking grammatically correct, and all the modeling that needs to happen and teaching that has to happen to get students to be doing that. So as a primary teacher, the conversation and the oral language component is huge. And as you've said, Kim, it intertwines and is sort of the overriding skill with all of these other components, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to keep coming back to this idea of the 5 key components. So here is where we will give you access to the slide deck, and I'll put the link in the chat.
I just put it in there for you, Kim.
Oh, you did? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, so you can click on that. If you have any difficulty accessing the slides, please just pop that in the chat and we'll resolve that. But you definitely can access the slides. So, oh, Ginger's gonna love this part. Okay, so Kathy Beamer joined us for a session at our English as Additional Language Symposium in March. And Kathy did such an incredible job of weaving high yield EAL strategies into instruction. And so I asked Kathy if I could use her high yield strategy list as a way as to kind of earmark as we go through our session today to just acknowledge how these strategies help all students. Right? And if we can integrate them in as we're creating and designing our literacy blocks, then we are really supporting all of the students in our room. So what I've done here, the little stars on the side, oops, sorry, little stars on the side that we will later ask you to just pop a star again if that's something that is feasible for you to do beside the high yield strategies that you witnessed or that you noticed were integrated into our component conversations as we move forward. Okay, and I'm not going to read these out. I think they're highlighted here, and I think many of them will be familiar and, you know, those high yield strategies you're using all of the time. All right, so let's get started with conversation time. So sprinkling that intentional talk time into all of our components, our literacy block components. All right, so I just did this as a reminder that we're really integrating this component into all of the different areas. All right, so one thing that we want to always do, and I think Lana spoke to this already, is give lots of time for students to converse with an intentional task and really challenge them to use new vocabulary, not just students who are English as additional language, but all of our students, and to really use mentor text that has rich vocabulary in it. So they're really being like the teacher is modeling how this vocabulary is used in context. So one activity, so everything in this slide deck that is underlined is a resource, a website, something that you can explore, you know, at your own convenience later. We're not going to get to absolutely all of them, but we wanted to just share that so that you're aware of it. So something we're going to do is we're going to talk about accountable talk. And this is something that I know many of you are probably very familiar with. Got a little bit of a lag on my... So something we're going to be using, and again, with K-2, we're modifying this, but I do want to let you know that this comes, you know, highly recommended in terms of the literature around using accountable talk stems. So these are sentence frames, sentence stems, where we're really modeling for students how to converse with each other. And at a K1 level, we can use something as simple as I agree, and we can teach our students, what does it mean to agree? When would you use that? And the opposite, I disagree. So I disagree with what you're saying, and this is why. One thing that I've had so many conversations with teachers around is students, particularly since COVID, really using their physical bodies to show how they feel in terms of like pushing or, you know, even using a harsh tone of voice because they're struggling with how they do that with their words. So if we can help them to be able to use and know what different phrases mean to express themselves, that may help with some of that frustration, minimizing some of the perhaps outbursts or physicality of it. So I'm just showing you this resource so that you are aware of it. And I'm gonna, oh, it's going into the same one. Okay, so what I wanna do is show you an example. Oh, Lana, I'll let you share there and then we'll do our example.
Well, I just wanted to actually add that power of conversation in the primary classroom, Kim, even just with the examples that you just shared, that it is an intentional focused lesson on that. So if we're talking about I disagree because or I agree because, that we're actually prompting students with a visual or a prompt or something, and we're modeling and showing them how to do that and giving them practice. I think it's the intentional piece of conversation that maybe isn't happening on the daily in our K-2 classrooms, but we know that students are coming to us without that skill set. So it is something that has to be intentionally taught. And so this whole idea about oral conversation and how it preps us for the reading and the writing is really, really huge. And I lightened this cognitive load in red because what we're trying to do is the more that we can connect that oral language and the vocabulary and the comprehension pieces that come with it, the reading and the writing comprehension becomes easier. So the more we can talk, the more we can share, the more we set the stage for that reading and writing learning, we lighten the cognitive load for students. So I think as a teacher in K-2, we always want to be thinking when we're planning and we're doing our lessons, how do I lighten the cognitive load? If I have students in front of me that are unable to write or sitting there not writing or not reading or not doing the task, probably I didn't set the stage properly. So the cognitive load is too much for them to actually complete the written or that reading task. So what conversational pieces, what prep do I need to do conversationally that is going to have the student have success? And so that student talking first is how students will learn better. And so I mean, this is happening not just in K-2, I think across the board, we need to be talking more, but let's set the stage at that kinder to grade 2 level on the importance of conversation and how it sets the stage for good learning.
Thank you, Lana. So, to Lana's point about intentionality, we are going to be using a mentor text today to as the core of our component work in our literacy block. So before we introduce our mentor text, we can get the students thinking about a provocation or thinking about a concept or an idea related to that mentor text. So what we chose today to get students talking sort of at that K-2 level, and again, as the teacher, especially in kindergarten, you can do this in a variety of ways, right? But you would really want them talking and talking to one another. So again, I've intentionally taught this idea of I agree, I disagree. I like this idea of can you tell me more about that? If you're confused about what someone's saying. So there would be modeling of that. But for the introduction or percolating vocabulary within our mentor text that we're going to introduce, the provocation I would pose to the students would be bedtime is more important than playtime. And we could do a grade 2, we could put them in partners like a traverse talk where they're facing each other, and then one side of the line talks to their partner and shares. Are you crazy? Bedtime is not more important than playtime. Playtime is the most important thing, right? So they could start to share, and they're having their partners try one of the talking stems. So it could be, I agree with you. I would play all night if my parents let me, so they're kind of having this back and forth conversation. And then you can move the line so they can have that conversation with someone else. So they're getting that multiple perspectives. At kindergarten, that might just mean them turning to someone on the carpet and having a conversation. You may use something like I like or I dislike. So you can change the stems. But I like that if you were to do it on the smart board, you have the stems that they're using and you're repeating them, but it's something that they, can see. So they're seeing the words written for them as well. Lana, any contributions there?
Yeah, I was just actually going to say, and so if students are having trouble again at the kindergarten level, and you notice if you're trying that buddy partner talk and it's not working, then that is where the teacher would actually model the response using that stem, and students would repeat. So we'd show them that if you agree, this is what it would sound like. If you disagree, this is how we would say it. So teachers would actually say the sentence and students would then respond to it. So that is responsive teaching. I suppose when you look to the students and you're not getting what you had hoped you would get, if they're not doing it, that means then I have to release the cognitive load a little bit more and now provide that stem for them and actually just have them copy and repeat what I say. And that's how we set the stage for hopefully down the way it becomes easier for them. So a lot of modeling at the lower levels for sure.
Yeah, I love that addition. It's a great addition. And you're differentiating, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that Lana and I wanted to include too in this session are ways to assess. And so one of my favorite assessment books is Rebooting Assessment. It's in the upper right-hand corner. fabulous book by Damien Cooper. And here what we've done is we've pulled. So the book we're going to be using is Past Your Bedtime. And so I put the subject at the top as that being the picture book. And then I put the learning outcome. And then I put the EAL and some strategies we're embedding. And then this look for chart, which I was at the university doing this workshop to some, teachers in training. And I said, oh, you can print these out on paper. And one teacher looked at me and goes, we use iPads. So yes, you can use technology, you can use paper, whatever works, but you would just put under the task, right? What is the task? We're going to do oral language, intentional conversation with a provocation, and then you can just walk around and use initials. Who is not yet there? Like Lana mentioned, who is it that you need to have repeat after you? And really intentionally, maybe you've gathered a little group and you're saying, I agree, and they're repeating you. And then you're scaffolding it. Which ones need some just a little bit of assistance, which ones are doing it independently. But I love that this is such an easy way to track some of the learning outcomes as you're moving through some of the components today.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we did oral conversation. My name's written there, that's funny. Anything, Lana, that we can maybe pause here for a moment? Anybody in the room, and we've had some new people join us. I put the link to the slides. Welcome. Any questions, wonderings that you wanted to add in terms of the oral language component? Sorry, I'm just going to go back to our slides here, links. Okay. Oh, go ahead, teacher. Go ahead.
What did you call it when the kids talk and then they move?
Traverse talk.
Traverse talk. I call that lines of conversation with older kids, and with little ones, I call it a sharing train. And
Yes.
actually sit side by side like they're in a little train at the zoo. And for kinders especially, it just helps to give a little bit more structure so that they can actually, and then one line moves. And yeah,
yes.
I love that.
What did you call it? Train? Say that again.
Sharing train or a reading train.
Okay.
With reading fluency as well, and then for older kids, we call it lines of conversation. So I love that traverse talk, though. That's very
well, traverse talk comes from School 21. So that's what they call it. So School 21 does the oracy in the classroom. They did the project, and I can put a link to that in the slides. And that's the term they call it. But I love your lines of conversation too. I'm just writing those in the chat because I think that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, and please, I meant to say that, Ginger, thanks for modeling. Turn on your mic, share. This is Lannon, I love that part. Okay, so we're gonna move to the first component, oral language, vocabulary sprinkled throughout. The first one we're gonna talk about is word work and word play. So we're going to focus on key features. So as you'll notice in this slide deck, there are endless ideas. Anything underlined is a link. In an hour and a half, we're not going to get through all of them. So what we did is we honed in specifically to a few that we'll elaborate on. So what I'm going to focus on, and Lana's going to jump in and out, is we'll talk first of all about the benefits of a visual dictionary, but interestingly enough, I'm not going to dive into phonological awareness and phonics specifically because a lot of schools are using programs like UFly, Haggerty, right? So specific programs to address those. I am going to focus into interactive word walls, and Lana is going to complement that with morning message. So we're going to really hone into those for word work. All right, so in terms of literature research, a lot of you are going, oh yes, of course, Scarborough's reading rope. So we just want to make sure we're always aligning to research. So today, again, for the word work, we're really going to be focusing on building these strands that we know all contribute to weaving together to create that strong rope, right? That ability to read and understand. So what I want to extend on, and I know many of you, I'm sure, are fully aware of this, but Duke and Cartwright designed a relatively new Scarborough's rope variation called the active view of reading. And what I like about this, and the point I'm going to accentuate because a lot of it is similar, is this idea of active self-regulation. So we know that as teachers, nobody has to tell us that we know that students being able to use their executive function skills and strategies helps them with their reading, right? And that ability, or that idea that if they're motivated and they're engaged, that motivation theory, that we're going to see that students are going to, again, learn to read and enjoy reading, build their comprehension on more of a constant trajectory than if those components are not integrated. So I just wanted to add that. I know we want to get into the actual practical piece, but just so that's mentioned. And then to accentuate that active self-regulation, I'm not sure if any of you are using the self-regulated strategy development writing approach. Very research sound, but they do focus highly on teaching students how to self-regulate when they're writing. And those strategies could very much be transferred to reading and speaking and listening as well. So that idea that we're constantly talking to ourselves, and how those positive messages are so important to keep us focused. And to, kind of wrap that piece up, the part that I really like about SRSD2 that I've taken away is little pieces of paper, even at kindergarten and grade 1, where students are setting goals. And so that idea of my goal today in reading is, or my goal today in writing is. And I was in a classroom that had just little white pieces of paper. They could even just check their box or draw a little picture about what their goal was. And then they were, gluing it to their work or attaching it to their goal book. And I just thought those skills are, again, supporting that self-regulation component.
Kim, can you just go back just a
Yes.
couple?
Yes.
If you can just go back to the this effect size.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
The middle one with that bridging process, and I just think it's important. So, and I'm not sure if our listeners and people that are tuning in have done a lot of work with the effect size, but we're looking at those strategies that are that 0.40 or more.
Thank you,
And
Lynn.
so you look at the bridging processes that are in the middle. So when you look at the effect size, and again, because we're talking K-2, how important those print concepts are, and that reading fluency, because we've done so much work around morphology and vocabulary and sort of the pre-learning and the conversational pieces to build the prior knowledge, these middle chunks, these building processes in the middle that talk a lot about that vocabulary building, the morphology pieces, the print concepts are so, so important at K-2. And so again, I think if you are planning and you're organizing your lessons, how am I hitting those bridging processes when I'm doing my planning, I think is so, so important. So looking for any of those strategies that are 0.40 or above would be what I'd be looking at when I'm developing my unit plans, my lesson plans, and how I'm developing my strategies to work with students. That's where I'd be zoning in on. So I just wanted to add that to that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so before we move into the sort of the practical, what does this look like component of word work, any comments, questions, wonderings? And again, you can turn on your mic, post in the chat. I haven't clicked on the chat in a while, so
Yeah, you're all good.
Good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so our mentor text, and Lana chose this book, and many of you, I'm sure, have read it, by Jenny H. Limon. I always want to add a See, there's my phonics and phonemic awareness. Okay, Past Your Bedtime, A Cautionary Tale. So what we are going to do.
Hey, I'm going to read you.
Oh,
Past Your
she
Bedtime.
wants to read it already. We really are taking into consideration this idea of deep. So we're going to go essentially a week with this particular mentor text, and we're going to integrate as many of those components that we're talking about and diving into today. But we're also going to go wide. So we're also going to look at what other stories, music, even visual art, visual media components can we add that pull out the vocabulary and components of this book, but stretch it to show students that it's not just this book. This book is not the only place we're going to see these words or terms or learn about these concepts. So for our word work, and then Lena added in, speaking of white, all of these other books, and again, so many beautiful options, but here are a lot of other books that would lend itself to that farm setting, and that idea of animals. Oh my gosh, that reminds me of when my kids were young, that click, clack, moo, cows that type. There's so many good ones in terms of this theme. All right, so for word work, and I love here, like students need to work with words and play with words every day. We allocated, again, that guide of around 30 minutes. Again, we know that's going to fluctuate depending on the focus, your theme, projects that you're working on with your students. But we also want to accentuate this idea that if you're using UFly, if you're using Haggerty, that there's different elements that can be added to bring the rich learning using those programs and attach it and transfer it to rich text, because that's really important, that our 30-minute word work block is not just only learning the UFly Haggerty components. We really want to stretch that to make sure that it's that they're applying what they're learning. So the slides that you'll see before you, this is the pattern that we're using. So I'm just explaining. You'll see the strategy on the yellow sticky. You're going to see lots of resource links on the left-hand side. And then in the center here, we'll focus on one particular strategy that we highlighted for that component. All right, so interactive word walls. This is where I would like to start for this component. I am going to ask you to do a little bit of thinking yourself with an example, but I would like to start, and Lana, if you can thumbs up that the audio's working, but I would love to start with this really short video. And I love what the students are doing in this video. And there's a few videos in here that are really good, just in case. Okay, so I'll just show a little bit and Lana will give me thumbs up.
Ann Simpson's first grade class is studying spiders. Throughout the unit, they've been capturing key words on an interactive word wall. Most primary classrooms include word walls. Often these are high-frequency words. In Ann's classroom, she uses a separate interactive word wall with words related to the unit of study, color-coded by unit. On this wall are both domain-specific vocabulary related to the topic and more general academic vocabulary. When using an interactive word wall, students manipulate the words and discuss relationships among the words and ideas. Some interactions are quick and can occur on a daily basis. Other interactions can constitute an entire lesson.
Okay, so that's it. I'll just show you that little component, but there's so many rich vocabulary experiences occurring within that little segment, that video segment. So what I'd like to do is just invite you again in the chat, or you can just do some thinking. But with K-2, what I've used and done in in-person workshops are paper bags or gift bags with some items in them. And again, for the story that we're going to be exploring, this again gets them percolating around which vocabulary they already have in their repertoire, and maybe some signals to you of some vocabulary that they are struggling with. But you could have little plastic figurines in the bags or pictures, whatever's most convenient. So they get into little table groups, or they're sitting on the carpet and they're pulling out an item each. And then they're going to use their senses to see, touch, smell, and talk to each other about what that particular item is. And then in the video, and I put in the upper left right-hand corner, is that idea of they're choosing one item and then they can draw the item, but they're also really trying to share as many words that they can with each other around that particular character or object. You can organize these on an interactive word wall, and then if that mentor text you're using for an entire week, the students can then have a place where they're exchanging and using those words. So just as an example, I put some pictures here again related to our Past Your Bedtime book, and they would pick one, and then they would talk about, what does the pig smell like? What does the pig feel like? And again, they may not know. They may have to talk to each other, talk about words that would describe that. What would he? You wouldn't want to taste a pig, but I mean, we eat anyways. But and what would they hear? So again, you can, have them interact that way to really percolate around the book. Lana, did you want to add anything?
It just got me thinking, if students again aren't understanding and I have to lighten the cognitive load, do I need to share a video of a pig actually in a farm, right? So that they can see, hear it. You're not going to smell the pig there, but if all students haven't had the experience of actually touching or feeling a pig, does a video help that learning? So again, building and setting the stage for, better learning, right?
Yes, absolutely. Especially if we think English as additional language too, we're bringing in some of those high yield strategies. We talked too about gesturing, right? We know gesturing for all students is really helpful. They can talk about size, they can talk about shape, right? These are things we can make, and acting and moving, right? How does a pig move? Okay, kindergarten, grade 1, it's such a great age to be, okay, walk like a pig. What would how does an owl walk? So you can have them acting that out, and that can also be a real gift.
Well, and remember, you're doing the story for the week. So you can focus in on an animal or a character of the story every day and build the characteristics around that animal from your story, especially if we're doing a deeper dive into that book for the entire week. So
yeah, if you have vocabulary from any of these pictures that you're just bursting to share, you could add that to the chat. And again, to the point about hay bale, if you've never been on a farm, if you aren't driving around rural Alberta, some children may be thinking, I have no idea what that is, right? So again, the video, as you said, Lana, the conversation, talking about, what it's used for. So again, we're sprinkling in that oral language conversation component throughout. Okay, and then the visual dictionary, and I put the link in the speaker notes to this visual dictionary. This is just one that you can use, and I know Kathy Beamer in our session had a visual dictionary book too. What I like about this, and I think let's see here, slideshow. I'm pretty sure so it's just at the bottom in the speaker notes, when you go to this one, you could have a visual dictionary ready for the students on a smart board or on an iPad, and then you could, like Animal 2, the great thing about it is it reads, right? It'll say the term to them. So they're hearing it, and you could say which one of these animals would live on a farm. And so maybe they're having conversations about, would you see a swan on a farm? You know, and what does it say?
Swan.
Right? So you could have this easily accessible for students. Again, a book format would also be an option, but that's one that I thought was kind of neat. And I'm sure some of you or many of you have lots of different ideas around different kinds of visual dictionaries that you could use as well. Okay, and the last component about vocabulary interactive word walls is just the research, again, supporting tier 2 words. So we often gravitate to teaching the words in the story that would be nouns, right? And possibly verbs. But we know the best bang for our buck are the tier 2 words and the categories under those, even in kindergarten and grade 1. So transition words is really highlighting in the book. So, and, you know, if there's words like however, those are transition words that they're gonna see across the board in text, and they're going to hear them too. So what do they mean, right? Multi-meaning words is another category. Information processing words a little bit more 3 and up, but it's certainly not going to hurt to start to use some of them and explaining them so the students at least have some exposure to them. So I just added that in because we really know those are words that transfer throughout all books and literature. All right, so Lana, I'm just wondering if it's the right point right now to just share the audio of the Pasture Time book so that everyone knows as we move into the other components. Sure. Okay, so we'll share. You could do the vocabulary component. Oh, it's going to start again. The vocabulary component before you do the book and get them percolating around the theme of the farm animals and the vocabulary. You could also do it after, where you could have some of the characters in those bags and having them take time to converse. So we'll share Pasture Time.
Hey, I'm going to read you Pasture Bedtime, a cautionary tale by Jenny H. Lyman, illustrated by Gideon Burnett. Down on Mac's farm, there lived a young filly who cantered and frolicked and loved being silly. Her name was Little Ann, and she played all day till her mom whinnied loudly, "Little Ann, hit the hay." Then off she would trot to her snug little stall and sleep beneath the moonbeams that shone through the wall. Well, one evening, as Little Ann trotted to bed, she heard her friend Owl flapping her wings overhead. "Little Ann," the owl hooted, "I bid you good night. I'm off to have fun, 'cause I've hearty owl night." When the owl flew away, Little Ann just felt mad. Why should I go to bed when there's fun to be had? And from that moment on, Little Ann started scheming. It's time to stop bedtime and snoring and dreaming. So the very next day, Little Ann tried plan A. She buried her jammies deep under the hay. When Mama neighed bedtime, Little Ann told the mare, "My jammies are lost, I have nothing to wear." "I can't go to bed without PJs," she said. "I'll just have to stay up and keep playing instead." Well, plan A didn't work. Mama threw her a blanket. Little Ann hoofed it to bed, feeling sulky and cranky. The next day was plan B. Little Ann snuck to the shed. Her new plan involved rooster, and here's what she said. If you cock-a-doodle-doo right at dusk without warning, we'll fool the whole farmyard. They'll think that it's morning. So when the sun set, Rooster crowed with his might. The mom wasn't fooled. She knew it was night. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Plan C took effect when little Ann saw the sheepwalkers who always walked in their sleep. When Mom called, "It's bedtime," little Ann walked around, her eyes closed, her arms raised, 2 hooves on the ground. "Okay," Mama sighed, "stay up if you're able, but be warned in the morning you'll feel quite unstable." So Mom hit the hay, while little Ann just kept playing. She pranced round the pasture, skipping and neighing. "I'm just like the owl," little Ann romped and had fun, but everything changed with the rise of the sun. Little Ann felt so tired and dizzy and sick, her head hurt, her knees shook, she wanted bed quick. See, every young creature needs sleep to feel good. So plan D was go to bed just when she should. Ever after at bedtime, all foals obeyed Mama's. They brushed all their teeth and put on their pajamas. And now it's your turn. It's the end of this rhyme, little Ann says good night, 'cause it's past your bedtime. The end.
So cute. Okay.
I love that. There's so many you could do with that book, right?
Yes, so many ideas. So we'll try to give you some ideas of, sorry, I'm trying to get out of here. Oh, it's gonna go
I'm gonna read you
again.
Past your bedtime, a cautionary tale.
It was so good. We're going to read it again.
I know, it's so great. We're gonna watch it again. Okay. All right, so interactive word wall again. You could do the word wall task before you read. You could read half the book and do it. You could read the whole book and do it. So just to kind of give some ideas. And again, all of you have so many ideas, but we wanted to really integrate one book for the week and show you how you could bring these components together. So I'm looking at the time, we're at 9:30. So these again are just some other suggestions. Did you want to speak to this, Lana? And then
I did actually. I included this piece. It comes from our APLC site under the intervention strategies. And I think any kindergarten to grade 2 teacher should have this laminated, posted on their wall and part of their everyday planning. But if you look at this phonological awareness development continuum, if you haven't seen it before, the skills on the left-hand side are sort of those precursor prep activities that you need to be doing and experiences that children need to be part of. And if you swing over to the right of the rainbow, all of those phonemes and the actual specific sounds that those individual letters make up that right side. So this continuum goes from sort of easy on the left side to gradually harder as we go to the right. And so when we think again of our planning and how we're doing our lessons, we should include pieces of all of those parts of that continuum. So we should be doing word work, we should be rhyming, we should be talking about syllables, and those will become precursor experiences before students actually can do the onset rhyme. So taking those beginning sounds and the ending parts of words, and then finally getting to the phonemes and what they say and what they sound like. So I just think this is a really important document that we should all, as kindergarten to grade 2 teachers, should be aware of, because these are the skills that make up our curriculum and they prep us for what students need to be doing before they get to those more complicated skills of reading and writing. So take a deep dive. It's a good one.
Yes, that is a great resource. Okay, morning message, Lana.
Yeah, I want to just close out our word work time with this idea of the morning message. This one that I've done here, I had in my mind grade 1, and I know some of you are looking at going, oh, really? On September 9th, 2025, I'm going to be doing a message like this for grade 1. But really what this is showing me, if I look at it carefully, and you can go to the next slide, Kim, because I filled in the spots. And if you look at the letters that I kind of took away from this morning message, a lot of consonants, a lot of beginning sounds and end sounds. So this is almost an assessment per se for where are my students coming in at the start of the year? What is it that they already know? And the idea behind this morning message is that every student would have his or her own copy at their desk. And so modeling on the board or modeling through your active soundboard, whatever you're doing, the teacher is going through what could this word be, how would we form the letters, and what would it look like to finish this morning message. So the length of the morning message, again, would be dictated by the strength of your students and where they're at. But this gives you an example of how you can intertwine that phonetic base and the phonics skills that students are learning, and what could we do with it. So if you go to the next slide, Kim, this is one that is not related to past your bedtime, but it gives you an example of what I could do taking the morning message and actually getting kids to do some work with it. So maybe they have to go do a bubble circle around all of those sounds that say ing, the ing. They have to go find them. Maybe they take their colored crayon or a highlighter and they have to go highlight the vowel combination that we're working on this week. So you play with this after you've done it. And the expectation is that students would use capital letters and they would put correct letter formations in the spaces that need to be done. And if a student is forming letters not correct, I can tell that. I can tell which students have started their O's on the bottom, or they've started their G at the bottom, or they've put a little hook on their letter N. These are areas that throughout the day have to get fixed, because this morning message goes home to parents at the end of the day, something that a student can read to their moms and dads at night. And it's correctly formed and it's correctly done. So if you look at the last page here to finish up our morning message, again, we flipped over the back side now. So we've done the work on the front, we flipped it over, and now we're maybe going to brainstorm other words that have that combination EE. And I love this one to the right, this triangling a word. So how can I get a student to really zoom in and focus on the pieces that make up a word? We can triangle a word. So our tricky word today was brainstorming. So now we're going to triangulate. They have to copy the B, then the BR, and they add until they get the full word completed at the end. So this morning message, I think, is so powerful. And at the kindergarten to grade 2 level, of course, it looks different in kindergarten than it does in grade 2. But if it's a daily thing that I can be doing with my students for that 10 to 15 minutes to start our day, it's a really good warm up to where we're going for the day. And if you go back to that first initial message that we had put on there that had the blanks, or do you know what a filly is? Okay, so if you go to that next one, sorry, Kim. So the morning message is done, but I've posed a question now to the students. Do you know what a filly is? So being that female horse that we're going to talk about in our story, we're going to open up the conversation. So whether you're having students orally converse after you've done the morning message, or maybe they have to go to their journal to actually respond to that question, it's a wonderful tool to start off every day. So I love the morning message. I did it every day in my grade 1 and 2 classroom. The strength and the learning that comes from an activity like this, it's everything. It's reading, it's writing, it's phonics, it's phonological awareness, it's punctuation, it's printing, it's vocabulary, it's everything. And it's building fluency, not only in the writing, but in the reading, because the repetition that we do every day. I'm going to do this sentence prompt, good morning, boys and girls. Today is for the whole month, right? And then maybe October comes along and I'm going to change out the prompt and it's going to be, what a fantastic day. So you can get repeating this. And by the end of September, that good morning, boys and girls could be all blank. So we build the stage for now, building vocabulary, that spelling vocabulary, because these are words we're going to use all the time. So a powerful, powerful activity. And I'll end it at that because I think it's one of the best, actually.
Yes, 100% agree. And even for older students, right?
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
so much, so many strengths. Okay, so we're gonna move through word work, just accentuating. There's lots of links and different areas there that you can explore if you're interested later on. It's time to stop and reflect. So are there any questions, wonderings about word work or oral communication, oral language, intentional talk time, comments, even something you want to share. Okay, so we're going to move to writing, and I'm going to turn things over to Lana.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about printing, sentence expand, and dictation. Those are going to be the highlight reels for the writing, again, because we're talking K-2. And so I won't get in specifically to these links here, but Kim, you plunked them in. Those are resources that teachers can go to if we're looking for a program or a scope and sequence of how we can do those handwriting skills.
Yes, that's
There for you
K-2.
if you need. Yeah.
Yeah, and the resource is free. I do want to accentuate that. If you go to this kids handwrite link, you can choose which grade level, and the resources are all free, and their research sound are amazing. So,
Awesome.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. So again, the research is telling us writing is not easy, and it doesn't come easy to many kids. When you look at all of the skills that are needed to be a good writer, these are them on the left-hand side. So it's not just about being able to print letters correctly and being able to handwrite and spell words. It's what is the thinking that has to happen before? Can I grammatically put things into order? Do I know all the different types of text structure that are out there? How am I even putting my writing together? And what's my craft? What are the word choices that I'm using? And then again, what's the physical action, those transcription skills that I need to have to be a good writer? Writing is hard. And K-2 sets the stage for whether I'm going to be a good writer or not. So let's move forward as to what skills should I be working on when I'm thinking K-2. And I kind of simplified it a little bit. This is that Beringer 2002, The Simple View of Writing. We need the foundational skills of the letter formation, the fluency, the spelling, the punctuation, and the word sentence idea of how I'd put all those together in a sentence with the composition pieces. So how I would organize and what's my thought process to how I'm going to actually compose something. Kim, believe it or not, if I don't have all the foundational skills and I'm lacking some of these composition skills, you'll see that this is a multiplication kind of equation. So if I'm missing one foundational skill, I am not going to be the skilled writer on the other side. So I have to have all of these skills foundationally as well as compositionally to be a skilled writer. So these are the things we have to focus on in K-2. So if we go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about the actual ways that we get kids to write. And it has to be daily. I'm actually surprised as a literacy consultant going into some classrooms when I talk a little bit about what does writing look like in your class. For some classrooms, it is not a daily activity. So when we're talking K-2, this has to be daily. So what skills stuff am I using and what strategies am I using to get kids to write every day? These are some examples. If I go to the next slide, that idea of printing, again, needs to be daily. If I look at the curriculum K-2, one of the most important things that we're learning right from kindergarten is how to form letters correctly. The more I practice the letter formations correctly, the better fluent writer I'm going to be, and the less cognitive load that I have to be doing to actually get something down on my paper. So at K-2, printing is important. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see this Art for Kids Hub. I put that link in there because this is dictated drawing. We have to build that stage of the strength and the stamina to actually sit at our desk and be able to physically hold a pencil and be able to write. So these dictated drawings at K-2 are really phenomenal in building all that skill sets. As well for printing, if I'm expecting kids to print letters correctly and form the letters correctly, I need to have a verbal pathway. So I included a verbal pathway for the letters so that you know how to form a letter. The voice of you should be in your student's head every time they're forming a letter. So when I'm doing that M, I'm starting at the top, I'm going down, up, bump, bump. And I hear your voice as the teacher in my head when I'm actually doing that activity. So here's some examples of how we can develop the printing. It needs to be daily. Do you have a printing book in your classroom that kids are going to go to every day? Are we focusing on a certain letter? Those are the pieces that need to happen. So if I'm kindergarten to grade 2, what activities can I pull out of here that are going to build my daily structure around printing? Because you set the stage for that grade 3 or 4 student that hasn't had the correct letter formation. We're not fixing it at grade 3 and 4. Once we get to that stage, those bad habits of misformed letters are there. We're not changing it. So really, really important for printing. Next slide. Journals. Love this. Do you have a daily journal in your class, and what's the prompt? And I put this in here because that conversation piece that we talked about earlier too. My pet monster likes to. So if I go to the next slide and I again see that students are not doing what I need them to do. I've given them the morning message. I've given you a prompt. Now you're asked to write in response to that prompt I gave you in the morning message. And we've got students in front of us that aren't writing. I may need to lighten the load and prepare the students for that journal right before we can go there. So our prompt today is, at recess, I like to. So maybe the students are going to have to share with each other what they like to do at recess. I, as the teacher, am going to record those responses. What do you like to do at recess? What do you like to do at recess? What do you like to do at recess? And I'm putting the vocabulary words up on the board. And then the student is going to have to repeat to me before he or she goes to his desk that at recess, I like to. Once the child does that, I give them their pencil, or they have their pencil, and off they go and they write. So before they're even allowed to write the response to that prompt, they have conversed it with me. They've actually set the stage for success to get it written down. They've committed to that prompt and that response. So that's how I can lighten the load for students. If we go to the next slide, Kim. If we talk about the quick writes, same kind of idea. I could put a picture prompt up, let's have conversation. You're not going to your desk to write until we've had that conversation and you've told me what you're going to write. So again, on the left are numerous examples and resources of where you can grab visuals that students could have some conversation on and then go to their desk to write. And this can happen at kindergarten too. What does the writing look like? It might not be the students individually writing, but we're doing a shared writing together as a class, right? So a quick write can be a whole class writing activity. Next deck. Okay, so a picture of a monster brushing its teeth. We're going to talk about it. And maybe these are the questions that I'm prompting. And we're going to have kids conversing back and forth. And then finally, when they go to write, what would you say to the monster if you saw this monster in your bathroom? And now the students are going to go to their desk to write. But again, they're going to have to let me know what it is they're writing before they have the pencil to do so. Next slide. Shared writing, I've already talked a little bit about that. If your students are struggling and they can't do the individual write, then in kindergarten for sure, beginning of grade 1, we're doing shared writing all together. We're modeling and showing with students how we eventually want their writing to be when they get to the independent stage. And again, to the left-hand side, you'll have links that you can get into to further your resource bank as to how to do those shared writing activities. Next slide. Dictated writing. I want to spend a little bit of time here because I did take some workshops in the summer, and this dictated writing is huge. Again, especially at kindergarten to grade 2. This dictation piece is all about almost an assessment of what students are learning and what they understand with the writing that we've been doing. So actually, our presenters in the States, when I took these courses this summer, they do dictated writing every day in kindergarten to grade 2. So if you go to the next slide, it kind of looks like this, where you would practice a dictation. So what's your purpose? What can we learn? And what are we going to do next? So I might dictate in grade 1, 5 words: jump, play, can, have, like. And I would do those same words every day. And this is what they're doing now. They're dictating every day. And what they're noticing by the end of the week is what students were paying attention to the focus lessons that were going on, and can they make some changes in their dictation responses from start of the week to the end of the week. And teachers are stapling these little pieces of paper with their words every day. And so by the end of the week, they've got this little booklet and you can see the progression that they've made throughout the week. In grade 2, that might not be individual words. It might be mini sentences or one sentence that you're dictating every day to see by the end of the week if we can get a sentence that is correctly punctuated and spelled correctly. It's crazy how dictation has taken off. So I guess I'm challenging you as the kindergarten to grade 2 teacher to not be afraid of dictation, not be afraid of spelling assessment per se, but take your assessments and take those dictations and actually learn from them. What is it the students aren't doing so that we can intentionally teach to get them better at their writing? So lastly, to end the writing is the sentence expand. As kindergarten to grade 2 teachers, we see kids all the time that are writing very simple sentences. It slept. I slept. I rode my bike, whatever it is. How do we expand with detail? So on the left-hand side under the resource, I've included the syntax project. I actually think grammatically speaking, if we don't have a program in our school of actually how to teach that structure of writing, this is a very good resource to go to because it gives you very explicit step-by-step lesson structures on how to build sentence structure. So this sentence gets expanded because we add the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. So who slept? What slept? When did it sleep? Where did it sleep? Why? And how? So by the end of grade 2, we want students to be able to write a sentence that is well written, grammatically sound, and has a capital and a period at the end. And we have the full year to do it. So this is an excellent example of how I can take the simplicity of kids writing and expand it. So this would be building up our focus lessons for how we would do the writing. So that's a very quick on writing, Kim.
Sorry, I was trying to find my fast and well done. So I've just been putting a few little like notes in the chat, but I love how sentence expand is great to do in small groups too. Our partners and that oral conversations coming back again and again, right? So that they could talk about it. And then Lana had included some just examples of different students who had taken started with a really simple sentence and expanded it out and added.
These are students in grade 2, right? And we're talking mid-grade 2. So when you think of what the expectation was, right? Our goal was to expand that sentence. Look what they did. They had an animal that they had to, who, what, when, where, why, how, and why. And the end product in a week, take a week to do this. The goal is capital, period, good vocabulary, sound sentence structure. Every day we're going to practice and we're going to build. I didn't like what I got the day before. We're going to do a focus lesson. We're going in and we're going to change. And by the end of the week, this becomes wall ready for like presentation, right? And they're beautifully done.
Yeah. And the
kids are proud.
Yeah,
Right?
no, they're amazing. And the it slept came again. We're always going back to our mentor text, right? Past your bedtime. It
Yeah.
slept. Who slept? Who finally slept? Who got so exhausted, right? He decided that it was worthwhile to go to bed at night. All right. Did you want to speak to this one? We have 10
This is my
minutes.
signature. I know. My signature piece for that with the non-negotiables is I think as teachers, you need to have non-negotiables. Don't let kids spell words wrong every day because they're using those words every day. Kids in grade 3 should not be spelling because, C-U-Z. So if there are words in your classroom that you know kids are using every day, then have a space where those are up so that every day when they're writing them, they are spelled correctly. There is no need to have students spelling words not correctly, especially if they're using them every day. So what are your non-negotiables? As a staff, can we sit down as grade 1s? What are the words that they always use in their journals, everyday writing? Here's our non-negotiable list. Let's agree. So let's have some conversation in our staff and schools about what are our non-negotiables at each grade level so that our expectations are these words are going to be spelled correctly. And I love the fry word list. It makes sense to me. Fry words are ordered in the frequency that we see them in reading and writing. So why not start there? So the first 100 words, do I want all my grade ones to be able to spell them correctly? Yes, I do. So that's my pet peeve, I guess, with writing is why do we allow students to just keep spelling words incorrectly when they should be spelled correctly? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and modifications too, in terms of, you know,
sure.
if they have a learning disability, we may have a copy right on their desk that they can see and use, right? And then English as additional language learners, you know, what
For sure.
modifications can we make? Because I agree, how do we support all students? So I'll add this. I know that Lan and I have this every time. We have so much, but this is a resource that every teacher should know about across Alberta. It was built by Rocky View School District in collaboration with the consortium. And it is a writing continuum K-12, and I've just put a sample picture there, and the link is beside it. And then on the bottom, we're so excited, and Ginger's from Rocky View, so I know she's excited too. We now have grade 1 to grade 11 on the bottom, grade level writing exemplars, and scoring rubrics for every grade available. And those are all free, and they're all on our consortium website. So those are incredible.
That's a gold mine. So by the end of the grade levels, what
Yes,
students
so there's a
you can
year
take-
long and a year end versions that were built. So yeah, so check those out. If you have questions, my email's on the top, like front slide. Please reach out to me. All right, so this
Can
is kind of, oh, go ahead, Ginger.
Can I just say, I wish I had those rubrics in the classroom because I was always using the grade 3 PAT rubric and the 6th rate trait rubrics and trying to put them together and make something comprehensible for grade 2, and they're just a gift. So please use them. They're the exemplars and everything. They're great. My colleagues did amazing.
Yes,
Thank
yeah.
you, Ginger.
I thank you for sharing because they are a gold mine. I like how Lana termed that. Okay, this was just a mid little check, but I'm just going to get you to, you know, take note of any of the high yield EAL strategies you've seen integrated by, you know, as Lana and I have gone through the components. And all right, so we have 5 minutes. And so I'm going to say to Lana, I think that we should go to your AI example
Yes,
right
yes,
away.
that's a good
Okay,
way to.
oh, sorry. Of course, my videos always start. Okay, so Lana, I'm going to take you there and I'll let you explain that. And we're going to have to close after this segment, but please know that as we keep alluding to, all the links in the slide deck are available to you. So.
Well, and I think this piece actually relates to that whole idea of we've done the conversation, we've done the word work and morphology pieces. We're definitely going to have the writing piece of it. The fluency and the comprehension piece comes through on how we do shared writing, how we do that, or shared reading, and how we do our small group reading and what reading looks like in our classroom. So I wanted to share because I know at K-2 it's always a challenge on how we get students to be reading in small groups, or how do I get to the reading component when we've got students that are maybe not independent. So I want to walk you through this example because it's been successful in the schools that I've been sharing it at. And I want you to know, as that grade 1-2 teacher for sure, that we can have students reading in small groups in little pods and everybody doing the same thing at the same time. So the sample that we're going to show you is just sort of an example now again of AI and how we can use it to benefit us. So this is an example where I wanted, as that grade 1 teacher, to be able to have every student reading at his or her level, or not, because I'm just going to throw kids into a group and we're going to figure it out. Our goal right now for this activity is fluency. So by the end of the week, I want you to be able to stand up in front of the class in your group and be able to perform this reader's theater. So we are practicing every day. So here's what we put into ChatGPT, or we'd like to put in, and we're going to see what happens. Can you make a reader's theater script for my students in grade 1 with different depth of knowledge, I have 25 students in rural Alberta, all different reading levels and behaviors. I would like to have 6 scripts that will take about 3 to 4 minutes to present. Students will be practicing 10 to 12 minutes all week with a performance on Friday. Students will practice all week with focus lessons on fluency strategies such as pace, punctuation, prosody, accuracy, and performance. I will assess students with all of these skills. Using the book Past Your Bedtime by Jenny Lyman uses many vocabulary words when creating the scripts, and I would like 4 to 5 students per group. Use the grade 1 ELA curriculum in Alberta. What happens when we plunk this in? It's going to give us all of those scripts that we want. The other nice thing about it is I can take all these different scripts, or I can pick one that every group is going to do. And as I said to Kim, what you can make sure to do during this time is every student, it doesn't matter what reading level they're at because they're practicing every day. So whatever lines I have or whatever character I am, I get to practice every day. So if I have a high reader, a low reader, a medium reader in my group, we're all supporting and helping each other. And we're going to practice every day for that 10 to 12 minutes. And by the end of the week, then we're going to be performing it. And you're going to notice that they've given us the very brief script. So I could take that and I'd say expand it to give every speaker 3 or 4 speaking times or 5 or 6 speaking times. And so this is the start of how I can build reading resources for my readers theater for all of these groups that are going to be reading at exactly the same time for 10 to 12 minutes every day. We're going to practice, and then Friday we're going to perform. So I think AI has actually done us a favor I was scrambling as a grade 2 teacher years ago. How do I get the resources for everybody to be reading and doing stuff at a table? But now I can do this, right? So the rest of the slide deck, like Kim said, is linked. We have lots of different spaces and resources to go to, but how is that kindergarten to grade 2 teacher making small group work happen in the reading pieces? And again, Kim, I'll say at kindergarten level, there's a lot of shared reading and a lot of that full class instruction happening. That might be in grade 1 as well, right? I only release kids to those individual times or those practice corners in their small groups when I know they're ready to do so. So what am I teaching to get and set the stage for them to eventually get there? That's kind of the piece
I
that we,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I'll point out if you're a kindergarten teacher, a day in K on Instagram. Oh my goodness, I've worked with Patty Slavin. She works out of Okotoks. Incredible. She does little videos of all different, a lot of the components that we've talked about today and ideas on how to implement. So I love
Yeah.
that. Anyways, we are officially out of time, and we never have a lack of things that we want to talk about. We'll close with samples. So on the last few slides are some sample literacy blocks that really do a great job of integrating the components that we've talked about today. And so those are, those may be something that you're interested in, but we are so appreciative that you joined us today. Enjoy the last few weeks of your summer, and thank you for everything that you do for students in Alberta and caring so much to come today to learn a little bit more. And we will hang out here for, a couple of minutes. If you have questions, you want a resource, I'll take the ChatGPT info, I'll put it in a Google Doc, and I'll add it into the slides on that Readers Theater slide, just in case you want to refer to that. Lana,
Well,
any
and
words?
yeah, just anybody can reach out at any time, right? So I know
Yes.
it's a dump of resources and a whoa, what just hit me?
Yes.
But they're available at any time to follow up or to have specific questions answered. So reach out at any time.
Yes. And I'll put our emails in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, and we can hang out here if anybody's got some specific questions for sure.
Lana, did I do your email right? I hope so.
Lana.lane@APLs. Yep, you did. Yep.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will definitely hope to see you again.
And the recording can be stopped.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. Okay.